Hello SLS1101 students, and welcome back to our weekly lectures. This lecture is going to be the final of 3 lectures covering Learning Objective 1, describing that culture of the college and designing the academic success plan like we had done back on a previous lecture. Going to wrap up here with what we're going to call Class 3, the Rewards of College Part 3. So let's go ahead and begin. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, it's always a good practice to press pause and review on the important content that we've covered so far. It's one of those things that if you don't use it, you lose it. So when in doubt, take a moment, just reflect back on something from the previous lectures or the previous parts of the modules that have had an impact on you so far. That way you're putting those items into your own words. It's going to be longer lasting as a result, and you're not as likely to forget it. So press pause, review from something that you found meaningful from the module so far, and when you're ready, let's go ahead and continue on. Next up, I do want to highlight goals. Now that we're at the end of Module 1, I want you to start working towards those personal goals. So we talked about in a previous video, outside of class, also putting things in place that you want to accomplish. Is there something you always wanted to do? Do you want to work on a new language? Do you want to do something involving volunteering for your community? Do you want to learn a new instrument? Do you want to write something? Are you creative? Are you athletic? Do you want to play a new sport? Get out and meet new people? Do you want to save money? Do you want to start a new diet? Think back to those goals, and now that we've had a little bit of time to process those, I want you to actually put pen to paper and write down one small step for each of those goals that you can accomplish over the next week just to get your foot in the door and get some momentum running on those goals. And again, if you don't write it down, you don't actually verbalize the things that you want to accomplish, the likelihood of those ever coming to fruition greatly diminishes. So definitely take the time. If it's worth it to you, then it's also worth it to write it down and to spell out exactly what it is that you want to achieve, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom in your personal lives as well. If you think back to the very first assignment we had in this class, it looks something very similar to this. And one thing that I love about this class is almost everything that we apply to the classroom can be applied to everything else in your life as well. This is one of those examples. So identify one of the goals that you're working on this semester that you suspect will be a potential challenge for you, and approach that the same way you would that challenging class, by preparing for it before it becomes an issue. So what's your real purpose in achieving that goal? Why did you select it? What do you think is going to be difficult about that goal? So prepare for that challenge before it occurs. And then what past experiences do you have in achieving a goal such as this one? Build on those prior experiences to build up your confidence and go into your new challenges with a full head of steam. And again, similar to assignment 1, there's some barriers and solutions down there on the down there at the bottom. So put a barrier in place and prepare for it before it even becomes an issue. Using strategies such as this is what separates the people who are successful in pursuing their goals versus the ones who don't know where to begin and give up before they even got their foot in the door. So I encourage you to think this type of mindset and apply this to your own individual goals that we've talked about before. Getting into the content, during Module 1, Assignment 2, you had 10 strategies to pick from. You're going to do some exploration to find out more about your top 3 strategies of those 10, and then find a way that you have applied them or can apply them into your personal life, especially involving school. To wrap up this section, I want to give you a little bit more insight into some of the more predominant of those strategies from Module 1, starting off with successful intelligences. Hopefully you read that successful intelligences can be broken down into 3 smaller subsets: analytical thinking, creative thinking, and practical thinking. That's one of the major elements from Module 1. So successful intelligence refers to all 3 of those. Analytical thinkers are the ones who can follow directions very well. They're very good at putting a plan in place. They're very good at organizing and comparing and combining and thinking very mathematically or analytically, as it says here. So the analytical thinkers are very step and and comfort oriented, whereas the creative thinkers think out more outside the box. So whenever the analytical thinkers, something doesn't go to plan, the creative thinkers are good at saying, well, how about we try this? Why don't we try that? So they think in more broad terms to overcome an issue or a problem. The third thinking type, the practical thinkers, are best at actually putting it into practice and using it. So analytical thinkers are the best at when it comes to following steps and creating a schedule to complete an assignment on. Creative thinkers are more skilled when it comes to thinking outside the box, and those practical thinkers are best at putting it to use and making the product a reality. So think about those three thinking types. And then take it even further and make sure you've taken the Successful Intelligence quiz from your textbook. That's on page 24, and you're going to need those scores for a future assignment as well. So once you take that self-assessment, put your results in a notebook and don't lose those. We'll use those on a future assignment as well, and that will help guide your Successful Intelligence score and tell you where you fit into that spectrum. After successful intelligence, another important topic from the module is emotional intelligence. Whereas you might say that IQ can measure a person's aptitude and their mental capacity, what the emotional intelligence, also known as the EQ, does is it measures their people smarts and their self-awareness. How well do you know yourself, and how well do you know other people? Can you tell when someone is upset or frustrated or bored or tired? Can you read their emotions, and can you change your own emotions accordingly to help adapt to the situation? Can you use your people skills to help convey a message or to get a point across that you're trying to achieve? Emotional intelligence. So imagine the situation. Two applicants are competing for a job at your office. The first has every skill the job requires, but doesn't respond well to cues when you interview them. He answers questions indirectly and keeps going back to what he wants to say. And now the second person's not as skilled, but you can tell during the interview that it's like you're talking to a friend. They listen carefully, they pick up on the cues, and they communicate a strong willingness to learn. That's the difference between having a high emotional intelligence versus that low emotional intelligence. Being able to convey a message and relate to other individuals and to have an effective conversation with someone else. So who do you hire at the end of the day? Think about different jobs. Think about a profession where a high emotional intelligence is even more important than a high IQ. Is it a job like something involving sales, something involving therapy maybe, something involving service or hospitality? On the flip side, think about a job where the high IQ is even more important possibly than the high EQ. What does a job like that look like? Take a moment, pause the video, think of a job where the high IQ is even more important than the EQ. It will help you understand the dynamics of these two elements. So benefits for people who have those high emotional intelligences. People with a high EQ have better communication and stronger relationships. They're more competent in social situations. They get along with almost everybody. They're generally likable and know how they're being perceived. Managers with the high EQ have more personal integrity and are more productive. If you've ever had a part-time or full-time job, and you've had bosses that you love and bosses that you don't like quite as much, it's quite possible that the difference between those two is their high emotional intelligence. Did they try to get the most out of their employees? Did they convey their messages well in a positive tone without feeling like they were being condescending or being talked down to? These are traits of people who have high emotional intelligence. They make great leaders also. Employees with high emotional intelligence are likely to receive positive ratings and salary increases. So how can you use a high EQ as a student? Well, imagine a situation like this. An instructor tells you that you have a 0 for an assignment, and you know you emailed them that work, but it was supposed to be submitted on an online Dropbox. So how can you use a high EQ to make the best out of that situation? How should you approach the instructor? Do you admit that you made a mistake? Or do you try to be combative or argumentative? Or do you say, I think I might have made a mistake. I know that it was supposed to be submitted here. I think I submitted it somewhere else. Is there anything else I can do to try to make the situation right? How can you use a high EQ? Do you go and see the instructor during office hours, or do you email them? Which one shows that you're more dedicated to having a resolution that allows for you to be successful in that class? Take it one step further. One of your study activities asks you to go to a website and take an emotional intelligence assessment. The website is listed in the class, but here it is as well. Take the questions, answer with your results, and make sure you write down your scores or save those to your computer. Again, you're going to use those scores later in class as well. Learned optimism, how people react to adversity. Learned optimism is the belief that things are going to go well for you. You continue to believe this and you continue to believe it. Imagine if you woke up every single morning and the first thing you did before you checked your cell phone or before you turned on the TV or even got out of bed, the very first thing you did is you said, today is going to be a great day. And you go out and you live your day. And maybe it's great and maybe it's not. But regardless, the next day you wake up and you do the exact same thing. Today is going to be a great day. And the more that you believe it, learned optimism suggests, the more that it will become a reality. So practice learned optimism. Practice the glass is half full. Practice, yes, SLS. I'm excited to take SLS1101. The class is going to be meaningful towards my future in college. We talked about a reason for Module 1, Assignment 1, to compare why you're taking the classes that you're taking that go beyond the excuses of, I'm just taking it because I have to take it. Find a reason and believe it. You'll have more purpose and you'll have more direction in the class if you have a reason for being there outside of just, I quote unquote had to take the class. So yes, SLS, be excited to be here, be excited to watch the lectures, be excited to put these practices into play and see the results down the road. People with a pessimistic worldview believe that bad things are permanent, they're personal, caused by their own actions, and they're pervasive, affecting all corners of their life. And as a result of these feelings, they feel helpless and they're unwilling to take risks. So try to avoid that pessimistic mentality. On the flip side, people with an optimistic worldview believe that bad things are only temporary. They will eventually end. They're external, caused by something outside of themselves, and they're specific, only affecting one corner of their lives. As a result, they feel empowered to take risks. So take a risk yourself. Have that optimistic mindset. Next up is growth mindset. There is a TED Talk on your study activities dealing with growth mindset, so be sure to watch that one and take notes. If you're more often motivated by internal factors, research indicates that you're likely to experience greater success because you cannot control external factors. What growth mindset relates to is the idea that everyone can do better than they currently are. So back in the day, it used to be that there was a lot of fixed mindsets, that people would say that you're either mathematically minded or you're not, that you're creative or you're not, that you're a talented writer or you're not. And those are feelings that are now in the past. The idea now is no matter how you are mathematically, you can always grow more with dedicated practice. Same thing as far as going to the gym. If no one believed they could ever get stronger, no one would ever go to the gym. And the same is true for elements involving your academic life as well. So encourage and embrace the growth mindset, embrace challenges, persist despite those obstacles, learn from criticism and be inspired by others. Push yourself to go further, keeping in mind that growth mindset, that with practice, everyone can get better. And if you're not fantastic at something, don't think about it as a ultimate result. Think about if you just haven't got there yet. I can't do this yet, or it's not working yet. I don't understand it yet, and push yourself to fill in those gaps to achieve those things that you want to achieve. Academic integrity almost speaks for itself, but it's doing the right thing in the classroom is definitely worthwhile talking about briefly. Having academic integrity means taking actions based on ethics. It involves honesty, truth, fairness, respect, and responsibility. So be practicing academic integrity in your own studies as well. Sometimes it's not as obvious as it seems. Think about a situation like this one. You just completed a final exam. Your friend is scheduled to take that same test from the same instructor 2 hours later, and she asks you what to expect on the test. How do you handle a situation like that, keeping in mind all the things we've talked about, including having a high emotional intelligence and academic integrity, and make the best out of this situation? How would you handle that situation? Think about it. Academic integrity is not always as easy as it seems. So how would you apply the skills to resolve the situation? So just a few of the strategies mentioned in Chapter 1, which relates to Module 1 of your textbook. For more explanations in greater detail, be sure to finish up your study activities and complete your Chapter 1 reading. For now, that's going to wrap up our series on Module 1 and Learning Objective 1. I look forward to talking to you more next week when we get into our second learning objective of the class, dealing with goals, dealing with values, time management, and a very popular subject amongst college students, procrastination, whenever we get into Chapter 2 of your textbook. Until then, thank you for watching and have a great week.